It started with a voicemail I was never supposed to hear, not because it was private, not because it was scandalous, but because it was meant for someone else, entirely someone who, as of 24 hours later, would never be the same. I replayed it 9 times. Each time her voice hit harder. Each sentence punched a little deeper, not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't. And as her words faded into digital silence, I realized I was holding something fragile between my fingertips, something sacred, a love that didn't belong to me. My name is Ethan, and I'm the reason they broke up a day before they were supposed to promise each other forever. But I swear, it wasn't meant to happen this way. And if you're still watching this, if you've made it past the first 30 seconds, you need to hear the whole story. Not because I want your sympathy. I don't. I want you to understand that sometimes the person you destroy was saved in the very same moment. That's all. This is a story of destruction and salvation, and how I became both, all at once. It all began 5 weeks before their wedding. I'd always known Lily, but I didn't really know her, not in the way that breaks you open. She worked 3 floors below mine, in the same glass tower downtown. Back then, I was doing pretty well in the advertising world. Clean suits, clean lines, clean conscience, or so I thought. We'd seen each other in passing, shared elevators. She once dropped her coffee, and I handed her tissues with all the awkward charm of a man who hasn't had a real conversation with someone who could smile like that in months. She looked like sunshine bottled in porcelain, eyes like summers that never ended, a laugh that didn't belong to office cubicles, it belonged in gardens and bookstores and tiny kitchens with cinnamon in the air. I remember the first time she wore something blue, nothing dramatic, just a sweater that matched the sky on a particularly hopeful Thursday. Her hair was up in that absent-minded way women wear when they think nobody notices, but I noticed everything. And that would have been Fina, harmless office crush, the kind you tuck between emails and coffee breaks, a secret to light up dull meetings. Until I found out she was getting married. Her fiancé Jordan worked in our building too, same floor. Our teams had collaborated once or twice. He was smooth, one of those golden men who walk like the world owes them something just because they make eye contact when they speak. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't a bad guy, just perfect in the sort of way that made people nervous. Too polished, too charming, like he studied people, not because he cared, because he knew he could use them. Still, they looked good together, easy, a magazine couple. I saw them twice in the cafeteria. She'd talk with her hands, and he'd always take a bite of her dessert, pretending he didn't want it. Routine love, safe love. So, I stayed in my lane. Until the presentation. Our teams were selected to pitch to a major luxury brand in New York. 3-day business trip, 5 team members, split rooms. Guess who got paired with the woman wearing blue? It was the kind of cosmic joke you don't laugh at, because you know what a line looks like, and you know when you're seconds away from crossing it. The first night in New York, we had dinner, not just us, the whole team, but after drinks and laughter, people peeled off one by one, until it was just me and Lily, walking back to the hotel with pizza in paper bags and paper-thin small talk. She wore sneakers with her dress, said she hated heels, but didn't want to look too casual for the office. I told her she didn't need to try so hard. She stopped on the sidewalk, not dramatically, just paused, like the air shifted between us. Why does that sound like the saddest compliment I've ever gotten? She asked. It's not, I replied. I mean, you try, but that's not what makes people look at you. I looked at the stars then, not her, because even then, all I wanted to do was kiss the corners of her pasta parts she hid when she smiled. But she wasn't mine, she was engaged. Thank you, she said. And that night, we went to our separate rooms, doors clicking shut with an echo to Final Four, something so innocent. The second night, things changed. Maybe it was the wine we split under the city terrace. Maybe it was the way she talked about her mother who passed away 3 years ago, and how wedding planning without her felt like pretending. I miss her, she whispered. Even when I'm happy, there's this emptiness sitting in the corner, like guilt for smiling too much. And I listened, not the way you're supposed to listen, but the way you do when every syllable feels like trust falling into your hands. I don't talk about this with Jordan, she added offhandedly. I didn't ask why. I already knew. Because there are kinds of love, the kind you show the world and the kind that holds you while you cry over childhood photos in the middle of the night. That moment wasn't about romance, but it was about connection, the dangerous kind. And I remember thinking, if she falls, don't catch her. It was already too late. The night before we returned to Chicago, There was a storm. Airports delayed. Our team was splitting later flights. Somehow, she and I ended up sharing a cab first. Rain dotting the windows while half the city glowed in puddles outside. She dozed off against the window, and for 48 minutes in traffic, I memorized the softness in her face. Then, her phone buzzed. Jordan. 3 missed calls. She stirred and reached for it, unlocking the screen, then quickly putting it face down in her lap. It lit up again. This time, I caught a glimpse of the text. Don't forget the final cake tasting tomorrow at 11, at Leela's, you promised. She didn't respond. Instead, she leaned her head back and let her eyes wander to mine. You ever wonder, she began softly, what it'd be like to fall in love without expecting it? That's the only way I believe it actually works, I replied. We didn't speak after that. We didn't need to. I walked her to her door when we got back. She rested her hand on the handle. I was turning to leave when she called my name. Ethan. I stopped. If things were different, it hung in the air between us, unfinished, and I didn't ask her to finish it. I only nodded. And walked away. Because that's what the good guy is supposed to do. Back at the office, things were polite. She got quieter, more reserved, her messages shorter. She started staying late, not with me, by herself. 2 weeks before the wedding, she stopped wearing the ring. That was when I knew I was in trouble, because maybe she was starting to feel the thing I fought every day to forget. But nothing happened until the voicemail. I got it by accident. Jordan's assistant. He asked for help syncing devices after a software update. I was covering for our IT lead since he was at a conference. Stupid timing, stupid luck, a glitch in permissions. Left his voicemail file visible on the internal network. I opened it by mistake. It was 1 minute and 27 seconds, long enough to wreck everything in it. Lily's voice was raw, not the polished, careful speech people knew her for. She was crying. Double quotes. If you can't look me in the eye and tell me you love me now the way you did when you proposed, then we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't fake it for our moms, or Instagram, or because people already bought flights. I can't marry someone who doesn't see me anymore. I tried so hard to be who you needed, and I can't keep twisting myself into someone I don't recognize, just the fitter version of your life. I miss me, Jordan. I miss how I sounded before I edited myself around you. There was silence at the end, as if she waited for him to interrupt. But knew he wouldn't. She never mentioned my name, but she didn't have to. The timing said everything. The moment, the pauses. So when I returned her engagement ring to her desk before anyone came in, she didn't say a word, just nodded. 1 tear. That was it. I didn't ask what happened that night, but the next morning, the wedding was officially cancelled. People talk about heartbreak like it's something that happens after love ends. They're wrong. Heartbreak starts before the ending, before the last words are said, before the bags are packed. It begins in the silences, in the eye contact that doesn't hold the way it used to. It starts when a door almost closes for good but keeps hanging open, just wide enough to keep hope alive. I watched Lily fall apart quietly. No crying at her desk, no long conversations, just silence, the kind that hangs over an office like fog, quiet and suffocating. Everyone knew about the wedding. Everyone knew it got cancelled, but no one knew why. In fact, people thought maybe he left her, because that's the easier version, isn't it? The acceptable narrative. The man gets cold feet a day before he says, I do. But the truth was, neither of them ran. They both just stopped walking. And that might be worse, honestly, because love doesn't always end with a slam. Sometimes it just fades, like the last note of a song with no chorus. I didn't speak to Lily for 3 weeks. Not because I didn't want to, because I didn't know how to. What was I supposed to say? I heard your private message and returned your engagement ring like some sad office stalker. I know you were talking about me, without saying my name, and maybe I felt something too, but I didn't allow myself to feel it until you confirmed you did. That's not how real life works. There's no clean confession, no music swelling behind perfect dialogue. There's just you and her, and guilt like gravity. And yet one Friday, stayed late. Part of me hoped maybe she would, too. It was stupid, I know, but some part of me always waited for her, the way a lighthouse waits for wreckage, and she came. I was packing up my laptop when she walked into the break room. Her hair was down messy. She looked like she hadn't slept, or maybe like she'd grown tired of pretending she had it all under control. She walked to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and froze when she saw me watching her. We locked eyes. No smile, no pleasantries, no polite avoidance. Not this time. I know you listened to it, she said. Thought her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. Tired in the way people get when they've carried too much truth too long. I nodded, because lying would be insulting. I didn't mean to, I said. But you kept listening, she replied. Another silence hung in the air like a dare. She closed the fridge, took a sip of water. I wanted him to stop me, she whispered. It took me a second to realize what she meant. He didn't, I asked gently. She shook her head. Not even once. He didn't chase. He didn't ask why. He didn't fight. My eyes drifted. Maybe he knew you wouldn't stay. Even if he did. Her laugh wasn't a real laugh, it cracked at the edges. You say that like you're not a part of it. I didn't ask you to walk away. No, she said, but you reminded me I was already gone. We ended up sitting on the break room counter, legs dangling like high schoolers. She took off her watch. It feels ridiculous, she said, missing someone I was no longer in love with. It's not ridiculous, I replied. You missed the idea, the comfort of something known. You miss what you invested, the history, the moments you thought were forever. You're not mourning a person, you're mourning a future you wrote for yourself. Her eyes filled but didn't spill, and for the first time, I let mine drift toward her hand. Nobody realizes how intimate taking off a ring is until you do it. She looked down at her bare finger. I wore it for a year, she said, voice soft. Took it off 2 weeks before the wedding. My skin still a shade lighter where the metal wrapped around bone. I almost said I noticed, but she already knew. She leaned back, hands supporting her weight, head tilted toward the ceiling. I used to be the girl everyone envied. Organized, engaged, excited about invitations and floral boards. She paused. Now I'm the girl who walked out right before the aisle. You're not a villain, Lily. Maybe not, but I look like one in his story. I exhaled slowly. It was starting, that silent rewrite of who we'd be to other people. She looked at me directly then, and her voice grew sharper. Did you feel guilty? Yes. And now, still, yes. She nodded. But then she asked the only question I wasn't ready for. Do you want me? We don't realize the power of certain questions until we're forced to answer them out loud. I blinked. Her eyes didn't flinch, didn't beg, didn't beam with hope. It wasn't a romantic question, it was clinical. Like, rip the band-aid off, do you, or don't you? And so I told her the truth. I haven't stopped. There it was, laid bare. A truth pulled from between ribs, past all the guilt and the time and the lines in the sand we swore not to cross. She didn't smile. She stood. For a second I thought she was going to walk out. She did end single quotes T. Instead, she walked toward me slowly, her steps careful. I need to go home, she said. I nodded. She paused, inches away, close enough to count the freckles across her cheekbones. Then she whispered, so do I. The next 3 days were silence. And when I saw her again, it wasn't coffee or smiles or lunches together. It was a crumpled note in my mailbox. Don't wait for me, not yet. So I didn't. Not visibly anyway, but my mind never left her. I saw her in songs, in bookstores, in every bridesmaid dress catalog, in sponsored ads that still hadn't caught on to her new relationship status. I watched her fade into quiet healing. She went on leave for a month, traveled. I heard snippets in office gossip. Lee in Barcelona, Lily taking yoga at 6 a.m., Lily walking out of therapy sessions with puffy eyes and overpriced smoothies. All I could think was, good. Heal. Find yourself before you try and find me. Because if I walked into her orbit now, I'd be the rebound. I didn't want her because she was lost. I wanted her when she finally found her way back on her own. She came back on a Monday. White blouse, no makeup, sun-kissed skin. Different. Not louder, not happier. Just at peace. Somehow that made her more magnetic than ever. She didn't avoid me. She didn't race toward me either. We simply orbited each other again, this time with awareness, so thick it made oxygen feel optional. One day, she stayed late again. The break room, our unofficial confessional, called us back like clocks returning to midnight. This time she brought cookies, the kind my mom used to bake. She said, chocolate chip with sea salt flakes. One bite and I understood everything. The ingredients are simple. It's the intention that makes them impossible to forget. Later, when we cleaned up, she turned toward me. You think second chances are real? She asked. I thought for a moment. I think they're earned. She bit her lip, nervous. I'm going to try something, she said, and if I'm wrong, you can walk away. No questions. I nodded. She stepped forward, heart echoing in her chest so loudly I could hear it in mine. Then she kissed me, not desperately, not hungrily, but like someone who had finally decided. When she pulled away, we didn't speak. There was nothing to fix or analyze or undo. We just stood there, rewritten. But life isn't about one kiss, it's about what comes after. And what came after wasn't a fairy tale. It was complicated because breaking off a wedding, that leaves scars, not just on the bride, on families, on ex-fiancés, on people who bought gifts and booked hotels and cried from across the aisle. And those people, they were still angry. The first time I saw Jordan after the breakup, he didn't look like someone who lost the love of his life. He looked prepared. Some men come undone after a breakup. They grow beards, develop drinking habits, or join yoga retreats to distract themselves from the gaping hole where their heart used to be. Not Jordan. He returned from his 2-week sabbatical composed, tailored suit, Rolex sharp, smile intact, but his eyes, they told a different story. Not broken, not grieving. Cold. Calculating. And when I passed him in the corridor that morning, he didn't flinch, didn't nod, didn't speak, but I knew he knew. Maybe not for sure, but enough. Enough to burn us both if he wanted to. Lily heard about his return through someone else. She was in the middle of drafting a lifestyle pitch when her screen flashed. Message from our intern. Jordan's back. FYI. I watched her face still, like she'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. She pushed her chair back, whispered softly, "I need the roof," and vanished. 10 minutes later, I followed. She stood near the edge, clutching a paper coffee cup like it could keep her together. "I don't want to talk about him," she said without turning around. "That's fine. We don't have to, but I'm staying." She didn't smile, didn't shiver, just said, "Okay." And we stood like that. Together, but silent again. The kind of silence that meant something different now, but that couldn't last. The very next morning, Jordan made his move. He approached me first. Of course. Classic. 6:45 a.m. on a Friday. No one else in the office yet. I was getting espresso from the machine when I turned, and there he was. Hands in his pockets. Polished. Precise. Double quotes. "Early bird," he said. I nodded. "You know how it is." He took a step closer. Still into those late night breaks with Lily. My stomach tightened, but my face stayed neutral. "She's a friend," he smiled, almost gentle, but the way wolves probably do before they rip the throat. If she were just a friend, she'd still be mine. I didn't answer. He shifted his weight, his voice dropping just a tone. "She wore my ring for 387 days. You think 1 month of moonlight conversations and rooftop talking is enough to rewrite that kind of history? Maybe not," I said slowly. "But if the past was enough, she'd still be walking down the aisle." That smile of his faded so did all the pretense. His next words dropped like ice in my gut. "You should start counting your days now. Because people like her don't stay still. They grieve, they rebuild, then they want something clean to come home to." He turned and walked away. And for the first time, I let the idea creep in, what if he was right? That night, I didn't message Lily. She didn't message me. Not because something was broken, but because something needed space, and neither of us had the courage to say that out loud. 2 days passed. By Monday, stories started circulating. Sideways gossip. Jordan had been seen at the Ivy rooftop bar with another woman. Here's the thing, though he wasn't the one in the picture, it was Lily. The photo was blurry, snapped by an intern's friend who believed everything they saw. Lily, white blazer, glass of wine in hand, sitting across from him. According to the story, she looked calm, like they weren't exes, like they were just something else. I didn't believe it fully, but I didn't disbelieve it either, which was worse. The truth arrived 24 hours later, straight from Lily. "Come with me." That's what she said. No ellos and no preamble. Just those 3 words, standing at my desk with her hands shaking. We took the side stairwell to escape curious eyes, and when the door closed behind us, she turned and said, "He asked to meet." I said yes. I didn't say anything. I just waited. "I needed to know," she said. I had to hear it from him, in person, with no screen, no voicemail, no blurred memories lying to me. "Know what?" I asked. "That I left for the right reasons." And then she surprised me by crying, the kind of quiet cry people do when they've been holding back too long. I thought maybe he'd fight, maybe he'd apologize. He didn't. "What did he say?" She stared at the wall like it held her answer. He said he wasn't upset about losing me, just embarrassed. He called it a failed investment. I swallowed hard. And you? I laughed, she said. Then I excused myself. Then I cried the whole Uber ride home. He wasn't the man I thought I was marrying. He never was. She stepped closer. And you? My chest clenched. What about me? Are you the man I think I've been falling for? I didn't let her cry this time. I kissed her, not because it was romantic, because I couldn't hold one more ounce of not having her. And when she kissed me but knew the past finally ended inside that stairwell, so the future could begin on the other side of the door. We started dating, not publicly, not loudly. We were quiet, not because we were ashamed, but because healing doesn't have to be performed for an audience. We built slowly. Rooftop breakfasts, late-night walks, movie marathons with messy hair and no makeup. She showed me the letters she wrote months before the wedding. Unsent pages full of questions, sadness, confusion. I wrote to myself, she said, handing one over, to the girl who thought getting married meant becoming smaller. Some nights, she'd wake in tears. Flashbacks of the hour before the ceremony that never happened. Her aunt calling, her sister asking what to do with the flowers. I hurt people, she whispered once. No, I said, brushing the hair from her face. You disappointed expectations. You didn't hurt people. You saved yourself. And that truth, it became our foundation. But fairy tales always invite scrutiny, which meant 6 weeks. In Jordan struck again. He requested a private HR meeting. Nothing formal, just concern over inappropriate office, relationships, workflow complications. Potential risk of favoritism. I got called in, so did Lily, and even though it ended with no action taken, the message was loud and clear. He couldn't stop her from leaving, so he was going to make her regret staying. I met her outside the building. Immediately after the debrief, she looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. The years I spent protecting his image, she said, and this is how he repays it. The world loves men like him, I replied, until they don't. She nodded. Our love can't exist inside this building. It was a near whisper. I reached for her hand. She didn't flinch. Then let's put it where it does belong. Next week, she quit. That it shocked the office. Her name hadn't even cooled off the abandoned wedding whispers. Yet before another ripple started, Lily's leaving. Where? Why? With who? Only those who needed to know got those answers. And me, I followed. Our new beginning was a small, creative firm downtown, just us and 3 others in a warehouse, reimagined into sunlight and dreams. She came in every morning with purpose. No ring. No rules. No guilt. Just Lily. And for once, everyone saw her like I saw her. There's a moment in every new love where the air shifts. Honeymoon glow fades just slightly, like morning light through window blinds, still soft, still golden, but not blinding. That's when real things begin. Vulnerability, insecurity, truth, layered over truth. The first fight doesn't happen when someone's wrong. It happens when someone finally feels again. For us, it came 9 weeks after the new beginning. It was a small thing. A Thursday night, we were at home, our tiny downtown flat with creaky floorboards, sun-bleached curtains she swore gave the room air. She was reading emails on the couch. I was meant to be sending client deliverables. She scrolled, froze, her face changed. She turned the laptop toward me. A forwarded message, simple subject line. Ethan Ward, internal file review requested. Was from my last agency job, before Lily, before everything. Why are they investigating you? She asked. That I blinked. Didn't know they were. She looked up. You didn't think to tell me about any potential skeletons in the closet. There are no skeletons, I said carefully. Not like you think. Then tell me, and I should have. But instead, I froze, because it wasn't what it looked like, but wasn't clean either. 6 years ago, I helped bury a mistake. A junior analyst botched numbers on an alcohol brand's nationwide campaign. The fallout would have wrecked a client relationship. So a few of us fixed the data, massaged the reporting, dressed a loss like a win. It wasn't fraud, but it wasn't the truth. And when the campaign got nominated for an award 2 years later, people started asking questions. So, yay, my name came up. Not as the liar. Just. The helper. The fixer. The one who nodded and smoothed and let it slide. And that made me guilty enough. I wasn't running. I finally said, I left because I didn't like who I was becoming. That's noble, Ethan, she replied, voice sharp. But you're not the only one running from who you used to be. I never said I was, I countered. Then, why hide it? Because I didn't want to be seen as a broken thing, not to you. The words hung there. Her breathing was shallow. I broke off my engagement. I burned down a whole life, and you think I'd run from your messy past? Silence. Then she tossed the blanket aside, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door. Not loud, not angry, but like something shut between us, something important. The apartment stretched out painfully quiet. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. The clock ticked louder than anything, and I hated it. Hated that honest love could be undone by file folders and timelines twisting to long dots. So I knocked on the bedroom door. Softly. Double quotes Lily. No reply. I opened it slowly. She was curled under the covers, awake, facing the wall. I moved to the bed, sitting carefully on the edge. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm not mad, she murmured. That broke me more than if she'd shouted. You scare me sometimes, she admitted. I turned, startled. Her voice was small, because when you don't speak, I don't know if it's protecting me or an old habit returning. I took her hand. It's not. I want to believe that. I'll prove it. She finally turned to face me. I know, Ethan, I want you to. And for the first time, I realized love wasn't about never breaking. It was about how we repaired. The morning after, I called my old agency. I told them they could reach me directly. I offered my clarification in writing. I took the weight back. Back then, I helped them cover dirt. Now, I uncovered each if I had to, and I copied Lily on the email. She didn't reply for 3 hours. Then she sent 6 words. This is why I left him. And I knew she wasn't comparing damage. She was recognizing courage, the kind he hadn't shown. We stepped forward, again, back into routine, back into laughter, over burnt waffles and spontaneous midweek wine. But something had changed. We were stronger, less soft, more real. Like foundation poured from hardened truth. And that truth came with boundaries. A month later, Lily met my sister. That weekend dinner at a tiny Italian place, hidden between lilac bookstores and crumbling apartments. Cassie, my older sister, arrived in a storm of sarcasm and hugs. You're the Lily, she said immediately. Lily smiled. So I've heard. Cassie examined her, unashamed. You broke off a wedding, and he fell for you even harder. Good taste or good chaos? Little of both, Lily replied with a grin. Cassie beamed. She's perfect, she told me later, while Lily was in the restroom. Don't mess this up. I already almost did. Then don't almost a second time. I nodded. I love her, I admitted. I know, Cassie said. But do you know her? The question lingered longer than expected, because love, it wasn't a shortcut to knowing. It was an invitation to begin trying. 2 weeks later, Lily's birthday arrived. Everything was ready. A surprise weekend in Asheville, a little cabin with forest views, bookshelves she'd love, wine I had no idea how to pronounce. She'd been working late that week, so I asked her coworker to drop a gift bag at her desk, a small card with the cabin confirmation, a note from me, and a keychain with the coordinates etched in silver. Later that night, I received a message from her, a selfie, tears in her eyes. You remembered the bench I had on our second month together during a rainy walk. She'd spoken about a park bench where her mother once took her as a child when she was scared of storms. I felt safe there, she said that night. I found the park. I tracked the coordinates. I had the keychain engraved. It wasn't just a gift. It was memory, given back. The trip was perfect. Lakes, lightning bugs, mosquito bites she couldn't stop swearing about. But on the last morning, as we packed, she hesitated. What? I asked. She looked at me and smiled, slowly. I never pictured this with anyone else, she said. And yet, I replied, and yet you showed up when I didn't know I was allowed to start over. She stepped into my arms, laid her head against my chest. Don't want to go backward. We're not, she whispered the next part. Then promised, when the ghosts knock, when they use old voices, old pain, you won't close the door without me. I kissed her forehead. I won't shut the door, but life isn't a cabin in the woods, and ghosts never ask permission before they return. It happened on a random Wednesday afternoon. Lily was out meeting a vendor. I was in our office, reviewing a client deck. When Jordan walked in. Not a call, not a text. Just. Him. He walked in like nothing had happened, like offices existed to be conquered quietly. Even the receptionist didn't know what to say. He leaned on my desk. .com. Measured. Like old times. Except now, we weren't men in suits. We were soldiers separated by love. You moved on fast. I didn't reply. You moved her on fast. Still, I said nothing. Then, he dropped the real bomb. Did she ever tell you where she slept the night before the wedding? That hit me like a punch in the ribs. What? He smiled, dark, cruel. She slept in my apartment. I froze, but only for a second. You're lying. He took out his phone, showed a picture, blurry, but her jacket, her bag, the time. I swallowed thickly. Why are you showing me this? Because it'll hit harder if she tells you, or worse, if she never does. Then, he stood, buttoned his coat. You might have been the reason she left, but I was still the last man she dreamed of before she broke everything. Those words, they dug deeper than anger, because they sounded like truth, the complicated kind, the kind. I didn't tell Lily that night. I didn't know how. Not because I didn't trust her, but because my own insecurities did what truth never could. They built doubt, and I hated that because somewhere inside me, I was still the man afraid of seeing the cracks in something beautiful, even if those cracks were always going to be part of its story. Here's something people don't talk about. You can love someone with every cell in your body and still feel insecure beside them, not because of anything they do, but because ghosts don't knock on your chest, they crawl through your scars. That night, I lay beside Lily while she breathed softly into the pillow, and for hours, I watched the shadows move on our ceiling. That question Jordan planted, it rooted. Not because I believed it fully, but because a tiny part of me kept wondering, was I her beginning, or her escape? The next morning, I didn't bring it up. She was humming in the shower, trying on 2 dresses for an upcoming gallery launch, asked my opinion, laughed when I picked the opposite of what she expected. We shared toast from the same plate, and I hated myself because honesty had always been our currency. And suddenly, I was overdrawn. 3 days passed before I cracked. We were walking home from the bookstore when I stopped under a flickering street lamp and said, "Where did you sleep the night before your wedding?" Her entire body went still. When she looked at me, I saw panic, not guilt, not shame. Just pain. And if you've ever seen heartbreak crawl across the face of someone you love, you know, nothing good comes after. "Why are you asking me that?" she said quietly. I swallowed because Jordan showed me a picture. She exhaled as if all the air in her lungs betrayed her at once. It took her a moment to speak. "I didn't want to tell you because it doesn't mean what it looks like." "Then what does it mean?" She stepped back, hand gently loosening from mine. I needed closure. I was going to marry him, Ethan. I spent over a year wrapping my identity around his last name. I wasn't going to cut that cord over voicemail and pretend it didn't hurt. "You went back to him." I laid on his couch. She said sharply. I said goodbye. I slept for maybe 2 hours, makeup still on, wearing the clothes I wore to work. I stared at his ceiling the whole time and knew I was never coming back as his. I wasn't his anymore. Silence screamed between us. "And yet, you didn't tell me." "Because I thought one night on a couch, in a moment of grief, didn't deserve space in the life I was building with you." I looked at her. All of her. And hated that part of me still. Ached, because honesty delayed still feels like dishonesty delivered. "Okay," I said blandly, turned away. That was my mistake, because walking away from someone who's begging you with their eyes to stay, that hurts worse than betrayal. We didn't talk that night, or the next. I let the idea of her on his couch replay, like background noise in a hotel room. You can't shut off. And that noise made home feel haunted. Cassie called me 2 days later. "So how's the angel?" I didn't respond. And because she's my sister, she noticed. "You messed something up, didn't you?" "No." "You're thinking about messing it up then?" "Maybe." And then she said something I never forgot. "You don't get to demand someone's truth before you've proven you can hold it without turning it into a knife." That night, I drove. Nowhere. Just drove, windows down, her playlist pouring from the speakers. Half my brain yelled, "Forgive her." The other half whispered, "What else don't you know?" Then my phone lit up. It was her. Text only. "Ethan, I'm in the ER. Call me." My entire world collapsed in reverse. Phone to ear, rushing red lights like they were paper. I didn't even ask why. Didn't need to. Because I knew she hated hospitals, so for her to be there, something was wrong. I found her wrapped in a blanket in a hard plastic chair, pale and shaking. When I reached her, she stood then broke, right there in the middle of a room full of strangers. She sunk into my chest like she'd been carrying an avalanche. "They found something," she said, barely audible. "That's all it took." The void cracked open. Later, in the private exam room, the doctor finally arrived. It wasn't cancer, but it was serious. A rare hormonal imbalance Lily had battled silently for years, one that had recently turned worse, likely due to stress, anxiety, and ironic, too fast, and it might affect her ability to have children. Not definitely, but possibly. She cried while I held her after the doctor left. Not because of what it meant physically, but because of what it had always meant emotionally. "Never told Jordan," she said, voice shaking. "He wanted kids, talked about them like clocks ticking. I tested myself in secret for months. When I kept getting the same result, inconclusive, low, maybe I stopped trying, and I prayed he'd never bring it up before the wedding, because if he had, he would have left first." I looked her in the eye. "You really think he would have left?" She nodded, because love for him was always about timelines, milestones, not me, just what came next. I brushed the dampness from her cheek. "Lily, I don't care." Her chest hitched. "I care," she whispered. "Okay," I said, "then we'll care, together." That night, we stood in the hospital parking lot for a long time, just holding each other. No future promises, no pretending we weren't afraid. But in her fear, she finally let me all the way in. And in my silence, she trusted I wouldn't run. The next morning, she told me the full truth. About the couch, about how she stayed up replaying every warning sign she'd ignored, about how she called her dad at 4 a.m. and admitted she didn't love Jordan anymore, and how he, for the first time in her life, told her, "Daughter, doing the right thing will never feel graceful," and how she left without crying. Because tears didn't change when something needed to end. "They only come," she said, "when you're finally free." That day, I forgave her. Completely. Not because I decided to, but because pain like that, pain she survived, not escaped, deserves rest. She had earned peace, and if I could be the place she finally found it, then being the reason they broke up would finally feel like the beginning of something whole. 6 months later, we moved again, not because we had to, because she found a window in a sunny corner of a quiet neighborhood and said, "I want to read here forever." So we signed the lease. Cards stacked quietly into clean drawers. No wedding board. No engagement parties. Just little rituals. Saturday mornings at the farmer's market. Sunday, French toast with too much cinnamon. Thursday night TV shows we never finished because we talked too much during them. It wasn't epic romance. It was steady. The kind people don't write about but should. Because slow, grounded love, that's where healing really lives. Cassie visited often. She brought plants Lily always managed to keep alive, even though she claimed she couldn't. "You're wrong," I whispered one day as I kissed her temple, watching her hands brush soil onto the counter. You think you can't grow things." She turned. "I live with living proof you can." She smiled, that smile, that quiet one she only gave when the pain stopped shouting and started whispering instead. That fall, we went back to the lake. Not on purpose to clear our heads, just to breathe. The same one her prenatal test had come from, the one that launched the emergency. The unease, the unraveling. The air was crisp. Orange leaves cracked beneath our steps. "You okay?" I asked as we reached the trail's edge. She nodded. "I used to hate this place," she said, "because I didn't look at the trees. All I saw was what it reminded me of. And now I see the sky. And you." I sat beside her on the bench. "The same one from the keychain." She pulled it from her pocket. "Still smooth, still hers." "Do you think we're lucky?" she asked softly. "I think we're brave." Bravery wasn't running toward love, that it was staying when it got heavy. That night, she handed me a letter. Not in a dramatic way. She just said, "I wrote this a while ago, in case I decided not to walk away that day." I opened it alone, sitting in the same hoodie she once stole from my closet and wore in the early days. It read, "If you ever read this, it means I chose you. Not because you were safe, or new, or the reason he and I didn't happen, but because you were the first person who saw me before I had anything to offer. No wedding plans, no last name decorations, no curated life, just Lily. And you said it was enough. If I ever forget the why, please remind me." I didn't fall in love with you at the start. I fell in love with you the moment I realized I didn't need to explain myself anymore. Except, maybe this, I still don't know if I can give you a family, the way some picture it, but I promise, I'm standing beside you. You'll never feel anything but home. I read it twice, then again, slower. And when she walked into the room and saw my face, she whispered, "You weren't supposed to cry." "Too bad," I said, pulling her into me. "You built something worth crying over." That night, I didn't ask her to marry me. She didn't drop hints about rings or timelines. We just slept, tangled up like pages in a well-loved novel. Faded, worn, safe. Foreign safe. 2 months later, we were having dinner with Cassie's kids when one of them asked, "Are you guys ever gonna get married?" We both laughed. And then Lily surprised me. "Maybe," she said, brushing hair behind her ear, "but not because someone expects us to, because we want to." Later that night, I asked her if she meant it. She nodded, coy smile dancing on her lips. "Don't act like you're not relieved. You won't have to plan a wedding playlist." "Hey," I said, "some people would kill to hear my acoustic cover of Ed Sheeran playing while you walk down the aisle." "Exactly," she teased. "That's why we're eloping." One day at 8 a.m., with espresso and croissants, we laughed until our cheeks hurt. Love wasn't loud anymore. It wasn't roses or texts at midnight or good morning notes written in lipstick. It was sitting in traffic and not turning on the radio. It was grocery lists with private jokes. It was slowly, intentionally choosing the same person every single day, even when the world suggested 100 reasons not to. One morning, I left a card on the kitchen island. Her eyes widened when she saw it. On the front, "I think I want forever with you." Inside, no pressure. Just thought today felt like a good day to start again. She smiled, kissed my cheek. "Okay," she said. "Okay, yes, okay, let's start." That was it. No diamond. No fireworks. Just a day. Made sacred by decision. 2 weeks later, we walked into the courthouse. No bouquet, no formal dress, just red lipstick and her mother's bracelet, wrapped twice around her wrist. When the judge asked if we wanted to say anything extra, she looked at me and said, "I forgave myself when I fell in love with you." And I said, "I became the man I wanted to be when you walked away from the life you thought you had to build and chose your own." She smiled. Her hands found mine. And when we said, "I do," I felt it. Not the loud rush, but the quiet peace. Of letting go of everything that came before, including the part of myself that once thought being the reason for someone else's ending. Was something to be ashamed of. Because now, I get to be the beginning. Not the escape, not the backup, not the exception. The actual start. Of us.